Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for TWiT specials is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is TWiT special number 45, recorded October 27th, 2010. Jay Adelson. Tom Merritt, Leo Laporte, we've got a great guest for you this hour. We're going to talk to Jay Adelson, who we knew and know as, I guess he's chairman of the board at Revision 3, former CEO of both Revision 3 and Digg.
But he's also got a hacker background.
Interesting fella.
Yeah.
Let's get Jay on the Skype. So you all know Jay very well as the, what do you want me to have as your lower third?
That's a good question. Let's invent something.
I'll put your Twitter handle. How about that? People like that.
Hey.
Hey, there he is. We all know Jay is the former CEO of Rig and Division 3. And you're laughing. You know, I was actually researching this interview, which is something I rarely do. And I did not know, what I did not know is besides studying computer science, you studied television in college.
That's right. Well, technically, I think the television guys would be angry because I mostly focused on film. But you had to take television with film, you know, to get your degree.
Was it an RTF type situation? Radio, television, film? Yeah,
it was one of those. Exactly. Boston University.
Boston University.
That's right.
Very good school.
Yes, indeed.
Because I remember the first time I talked to you, you were actually at Equinix.
That's right. I think, wow. Yeah, Equinix was like, I was still doing that for a while. Even into Digg and Revision 3, I continued to be a product guy. I don't even know what you call me. I was just this technology guy there. I founded it, but
Wikipedia says you were CTO.
I was technically CTO, yes. But I think by the time 2005 came and when we met, I was already doing other things. So it was just a matter of time before I resigned.
Oh, you knew you were kind of headed out. Was that your first startup?
Equinix was my first real, like, where I did it myself, yeah. I mean, the Palo Alto Internet Exchange, which really was a business unit that sat inside of Digital Equipment Corp, was kind of like a startup. I mean, we raised money inside the organization, and we built our business there with Alta Vista upstairs, and we were downstairs. And before that, I was one of the first employees of Netcom, which I know you remember.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I built their network operations.
They were one of the first really big ISPs.
That's right. And they were also the lesson I needed to learn about what startup life was like and what not to do.
Weren't they a pretty horrible company? I maybe you don't want to say that now, but I got the impression it wasn't the nicest people in the world.
Well, you know, the guy who started it, I've described him as kind of like Fred Flintstone on meth.
That's very frightening.
I don't even know what it means, and I'm laughing.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that? Because he was an incredibly crazy and excited CEO named Bob Rieger, who, I mean, anyone who worked with him both loved him and hated him because he
drove his car with his feet.
You know, he was crazy. He was crazy. I mean, one time he threw a chair through a window, broke the glass, and we're all like freaked out. Why is he doing this? Because the power went out in the equipment room, the data center, and the only way to get power up to that room was to run cables out to the parking lot to a generator out there. And so he broke the window.
Oh, so it wasn't an angry Ballmer like
No,
he was
brilliant.
He was fixing the problem.
But Netcom was, I think, the ISP in the Bay Area. I was a Netcom customer. I think for a long time it was like you were Netcom or nothing.
That's right. I mean, they were the biggest in the United States for a while for internet exclusive, right? And then
they did NetCruiser. Remember NetCruiser? You don't remember NetCruiser. Do you remember NetCruiser, Tom?
Yeah, I remember NetCruiser.
NetCruiser was
now,
their
come
software.
on, that was before Netscape was commercialized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone talks about Netscape as the first browser, but there was NetCruiser, man. That was the first.
ix.netcom.com.
That was written by a guy named Peter Kaminsky, who is still out and about in the high tech world, and a guy named Frank Robles who started Yipes. Anyway, long stories, old news.
I forgot about the ix.net. Yeah,
everybody was ix.netcom.com. That was the email address.
Right?
Yeah,
because they were going to name that software Internet Express, and then they found out that someone else had taken it, and they didn't really want to rewrite all the software, so they just
we'll just keep the IX.
One of the many lost stories to history that no one will care about.
Here's another good story. It was Netcom's network that Kevin Mitnick broke into.
That's right. I was there when we caught him.
Really?
Yeah, I was sitting next to Andrew and Sutomo, who, while they were, they had like the laptop open. It was weird because Sutomo had this Sun laptop, which no one had. I'd
never even heard of.
Typical thing.
Yeah.
And we were all amazed with that. And he was watching the packets as they flew by because he had a sniffer on it. And you can actually watch those. If you're interested in ever seeing those playbacks of the buffer, like as if you were watching it happen, I think takedown.com is still up somewhere.
Really?
And you can see the whole Mitnick experience. That was amazing moment.
Takedown was the book written about him. There were two books written about Kevin. One Kevin hated.
Yeah.
And one Kevin loved. I can't remember which one Takedown was.
Takedown, I believe it was written by Sutomo. So it was sort of like from the perspective of the guy who was catching him.
Right.
And what I remember most about that is how long it took. I mean, we're talking about many weeks of sitting in the network operations center watching this guy do his hacking while they were trying to triangulate on his wireless signal, which turned out to be in North Carolina in Research Triangle Park.
Wow, you're right. This site has been up since 1995.
Takedown.com?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not as old as my email address, but we won't talk about that.
We're connected right now to kevinondemand.takedown.com. All right. And this is the session. You can actually watch the session, except that apparently my telnet is not working right.
This is like HTML. This is really, really old stuff. So if it still works, I'm impressed because this was set up before there was even Flash.
Apparently, the text is screwed up. I must be in Unicode or something. I'll have to set this to VT100 and go back. But that's pretty cool. So does Kevin Mitnick know of Jay Adelson, and does he hate you, or does he? Because he.
I was running network operations, which was not like that interesting. Robert Hood was the sort of founding techie behind Netcom. He might remember who Robert Hood was.
Okay. He wasn't going after you guys. You were just a conduit.
No, he was like launching his. The thing about Netcom is we had these pops all over the country, and in each pop we had, devices that you could basically move from one device in one city to the next device in the next city. So these sort of local port masters and whatnot that ran telnet. You could do all sorts of funky things to basically cover your tracks by moving from city to city to city. Like in the movies when you watch somebody tracing a phone call and it's going from one city to another to another to another. That's essentially what Kevin was doing. And so yeah, it was it was an interesting process of trying to reverse engineer. But he wasn't trying to hurt us, although he was hacking into Netcom servers. There was a server called Netcom SV where we kept credit card numbers of our customers at the time, and we had he had actually replaced the telnet binary on a number of the security personnel's servers inside of Netcom.
Using a rogue telnet of some kind.
Right. So if I ran that on my machine, it wasn't my machine, by the way, just full disclaimer, somebody's machine.
Right.
It would create a tunnel for him to come back through.
Wow.
He's a smart dude.
He's a great guy too, and actually, I really like him. You probably remember when he got out of prison, he hadn't had internet access the whole time, and he was living on cans of tuna. And we had him on the screensavers. In fact, we had him on.
We had him on once before he was allowed to touch computers.
Right.
I remember that because there was
right
a
after
big
prison
to-do about how we were going to have him on the set.
Right. And then the first day that he could touch a computer, he was on. Woz came out and gave him a MacBook because Woz likes hackers.
Yes, he does.
When you were on the Screensavers, Jay, you explained for the first time, and in fact the only time I've ever heard anybody explain it coherently, what peering is and how the network really works.
Yeah, the inter part of the internet, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, that was fun. Kevin wanted to take pictures of the inside of the physical internet and did a segment. Yeah, it was
that's neat.
It was a fun time.
It's really neat. And yet of course when you started at Digg and Revision 3, I remember you telling me, well, I'm doing Digg, but my heart is in the film and television production. You always loved that stuff.
I often told people at the time, I think it's still true. I mean, Revision 3 was the company I founded and felt like it was coming from something very personal, and I feel like Digg was really founded by Kevin.
It was Kevin's show. Yeah.
It was coming from something very personal for him, and then we both, but it was at the same time, and both, I mean, I was CEO of both companies, but the rest is kind of history. I guess Digg took off and took a lot more of my time than Revision 3.
At this point, you wish it had gone the other way?
I don't know. I mean, I have to be honest with you. The Digg experience was amazing. It was fun. It was challenging. The chasing the spammers, the algorithm work, just the people that work at Digg and still work at Digg, despite their recent cut. I'm sure some of them are still there. It was just such a great startup, and it was the first time that I could try and do things to affect the culture the way I wanted myself. Because in previous startups with Equinix, when I founded that, I had a CEO who was both a co-founder at first, the CEO, a guy named Al Avery, and then later we brought in a seasoned guy when we went public. And that in that case, your culture is completely shaped by who your leader is. And so, Digg was my opportunity to set that tone.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's different when you do it yourself. It doesn't mean you do it right, but for whatever reason, I loved it. And I don't know. I think if Kevin was sitting here, I think he'd say the same thing. The culture of that company was wonderful and a great place to work. And I hope still is.
It was funny when I wrote a column for CNET at the time about Revision 3, because I thought this is the very, very early days that was the better bet. That Digg was interesting and it was cool, but I thought, wow, Revision 3, now that's the idea that's nobody else is doing, and it turns out I was so far wrong.
Well, I'm not sure.
Maybe not.
In hindsight, you might have been right.
Yeah, I mean, Revision 3 as a business is actually doing extraordinarily well. I'm still chairman of the board there, and so I see their updates every month, and I don't know how many layers of non-disclosure I'd be breaking to tell you that. I mean, they're like EBITDA positive, and they can basically make decisions on when they want profitability to happen. And I mean, the trick for Revision 3 was educating an entire marketplace about monetizing video on the internet. And better than anyone, it took a while for the advertisers to catch on.
Yeah. That's all it really was. It was just a question of them catching up.
They're still catching on, but yeah.
But this is true for us, and I know it's true for Revision 3, but we are now selling ads successfully and effectively, and I know Revision 3 is doing a great job of that.
That's right. I mean, they've got just this team out there, Brad Murphy and his crew. I mean, these guys know
Brad's
how.
The best. Brad was at Tech TV. We know him and love him.
Yeah, Brad's
the
great.
best.
I mean, I'm in awe with some of the deals that they've done, and the real obvious sort of sign that it's working is when those advertisers call you back for the second buy and the third buy for years. For years. I mean, Anheuser-Busch, who would have thought? I mean, folks like that and consumer goods buying. We even have the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration buying ads on Revision 3.
That goes with awesome. Bud, I think, myself. Jay, let me ask you before we go much farther. Okay, so you're chairman of the board at Digg. I mean, at Revision 3. Do you have any association with Digg at all?
Other than they're all,
besides their friends, obviously.
Yeah. Technically, I'm a very large Our shareholder.
Okay, you have a big stake in it, and your only association with Rev3 at this point is as chairman of the board.
I'm moving closer to my Wi-Fi access point here.
Yeah, that's good. We're getting a little hesitation and stuttering. Yeah,
from
the
Wi-Fi
little delay. So ask the last question again.
And so you're chairman of the board at Revision 3 is your only association with them.
That's right.
Only association. He's chairman of the freaking board. I mean, that counts for something.
Did the Frank Sinatra revision?
Well, I mean, and I spend a lot of time with both groups of people. It's like I'll go to Digg and I'll hang out with those people and I'll talk to them about the product and so forth. Right. I'll go to Revision 3.
So you're still on good terms with Digg?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I've met the CEO.
Did the board force you out, Jay? What happened?
Boy, wouldn't the details of that be interesting? I don't know. I think it was a mutual moment where everybody decided this was the best decision. I'd love to say it was like really dramatic, like they, like I showed up one day and was horribly surprised that we were at this
some sort of Aaron Sorkin moment.
They slid the paycheck under they locked the door and slide the paycheck under. I've been at radio firings like that where they slide the check under the door and you can't come in.
You can't come in. And you know,
it wasn't that way, huh?
No, with Digg, before I moved to California, I remember Kevin and I sitting down and talking about the risks because part of I think part of what was happening at Digg was this idea of reinvention.
It was already in process when you moved out?
Yeah, in fact, I'd say about 8 months before I moved out, the Digg team really knew that their product would have to do a pretty major shift if we wanted to. I mean, maintaining the current traffic level wasn't so tough. If we wanted to just tweak the existing product set and we wanted to sort of improve upon it, but if we wanted growth and the pressure, I think, from the investors, and I think that the sort of the sense that we had was that we really needed a new platform on which to build fast, iterative features and more socially relevant features, and we didn't have it. So right about this, I think it was right about the time that I want to say 09, May, June of 09, when we started coding our complete new backend to how Digg would function. And it wasn't so much that we had to have the product completely baked at that point, but we needed a new backend. And so that was going on before I left. And then when I got there, really was when we kicked into high gear this new set of products and features, which, you know, the product set that I announced at South by Southwest, it's not the same product that was released, but I mean, that was where my head was at, and that's where the company was headed when I left.
So you would say Digg 4 was not your idea?
It's not. I wish it was really simple. Digg, there are elements of Digg. The My News thing on Digg v4 was something Kevin and I talked about for a very long time. So the idea of My News that took signal from Twitter, Facebook, other sources to help rank things that were basically socially driven, that is a separate set of news, or maybe informs a set of news or a rank of news that is more of the zeitgeist-driven news. That was a concept that we had talked about together a lot. I think that, I mean, if I wanted to simplify the answer to this, I'd say, well, I tended to be more about Digg as a discovery medium on the top news kind of side of things. If you want to, I don't think we called it top news, but sort of this idea that you come and see what the world is thinking is really interesting, and maybe your social network can inform that a little bit. And I think that maybe Kevin was a little bit on the other side of that, which was how could you really make a news discovery site based on really what your social network is doing. And neither of us were right or wrong. It was just a question of how do we organize the product going forward, and well, you saw it happen.
What is with the all the scuttlebutt now about the Digg bots and the so-called gaming of the system? Is that Digg has said that, and I know you're not involved day to day, but Digg has said that this is just testing material. Does that sound right to you? Is this the kind of testing that would have been done to fix this sort of stuff?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I know that while I was there, there definitely was a lot of beta testing and a lot of systems we would use to try and test load and so forth. I don't know if that would translate to Digg user IDs showing up in the history. The whole thing about Digg now, which I really can't speak to because I'm not familiar with, is this idea of following publishers and how that would impact the Digg's homepage or the top news page or the My News page. And I know that there was a lot of publishing tools that were at least in the hopper to be created so that publishers could you could get like a feed. Well, I guess that's live. So I can subscribe to a publisher, essentially follow a publisher, and get everything that they submit, regardless of the number of digs. So I'm not exactly sure why, in that context, anyone would want to game it anymore. Like, it doesn't really matter how many digs it gets in the My News context at all. You'll see it something appear with one. So I'm just trying to understand the motivation for it.
That's what a lot of people are pointing at, is like, oh, it only had one dig and it made it to the homepage. And you're saying, well, that can happen.
Right, and I did read a little bit. I did read a little. Well, see, My News is a very different product than the product that I'm familiar with when I was there. I mean, My News is a different thing. It's more like following a feed or an aggregate feed of many different things, of publishers, of individuals, tastemakers, these different types of sources of material that rather than wait for some promotion to happen, I'm going to base this feed on these sources. And I believe that when you click on My News, it is this aggregation. So it's not relevant how many digs something has. Now, there is still a top news section, and that the number of digs, and there is still an algorithm that's very relevant to that. There may even be an algorithm relevant to My News. I can't speak like I know because I don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, but the top news, in theory, digs matter in the sense that you're trying to capture this zeitgeist. The thing is, which I don't think a lot of people understand, is that in order to prevent spamming, not all digs are going to be equal. If we detect that there's a spammer who's with like an automated system, first of course, we'll delete the accounts, or at least we would back when I was there. But also, I mean, we wouldn't want that to contribute to the promotion of the story. We might register the dig on the count, but we wouldn't necessarily allow that to affect the promotion of the story. At least we would try to, with all these sort of anti-spam tools and sort of methods of sort of detecting that pattern. I don't know what's there today, so so who knows? Maybe it is relevant when these automated systems dig.
We don't need to get too much in the details of what's going on at Digg now, because you're not there anymore. And
I'm not there,
you don't know what's going on. They got plenty. Kevin's on here all the time. He has plenty of time to talk about what's going on.
And they have no incentive to be deceitful. I mean, it doesn't help Digg at all. So I really just think that what happens a lot is that people try and reverse engineer what algorithm there is. They do a lot of work. There's a lot of false correlations that you'll find in this data if you look too hard.
All with a goal to gaming it.
Yeah, and there's some power users who were really disrupted, I think, in this change of Digg, and some of them have sort of really evolved well with this and continue to be very influential in the Digg landscape. Others, I think, just their whole system of how they got stories to the homepage really was it just didn't work anymore.
They didn't like
They're pissed. And that's and I don't blame
No, but you live by the community, you die by the community. And I told Kevin this when it was he was on TWiT during the worst of it, and I it's both a blessing and a curse that you have these devoted, crazed users.
Well, I love them because, I mean, the way I look at it is they were the evangelists who made Digg.
But they also felt ownership of it. I'm sure Ev Williams hates people like me and Scoble, because we felt some ownership at the same time as we were there promoting it.
I understand that. I mean, but the reality is that in the case of Digg, it is a democratic medium, and they did own it.
Yeah.
And
good for you.
And really, and the impact of I mean, you could try and change the product to help these guys or think that you have their best interests in mind. I mean, it's all with good intentions. And sometimes what was funny is we would have these focus group meetings where we bring in these power users from the community, and they would give us advice on how to change the product. We'd change the product the way they essentially would guide us. And then we get this massive, attack. Digg bar is a classic example where, in my opinion, the users are basically guiding us in that direction. And you saw what happened with that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't like the Digg bar. I remember that was
it was one of many times when what you realize is the vocal minority does not represent the interests of the 20, 30, however many million users are using Digg. And they're important because they're evangelists, and you got to make them content and satisfied with their experience, but what they like may not be appropriate for everybody.
Do you think it's over for Digg?
I can't see it ending. There's just too many people who still truly believe in using this as their discovery medium. Are
the numbers back up? Do you know?
I don't think they're back up. I still think that there's some decline in the unique visitors. I mean, one of the things that happened, which was, I'm just watching this from the sidelines, but I knew enough about it to understand this, is that they changed the product so that when you click on a link, it doesn't take you to the permalink within Digg anymore.
Right.
When they made, and that's it's good for users, but you just cut out 50-75% of the page views by making this change.
Yeah, I like it as a user, but of course the revenue, it cuts your revenue considerably.
Right. And by the way, that's not necessarily a bad decision. That could be a perfectly legitimate decision, because what you're trying to do is delight users with product. You're not trying to necessarily squeeze every last penny out of their experience.
I found that instructive with both Facebook and Twitter, that they have not worried about monetization. They've worried about building an audience and delighting users, and you just figure the money will follow. But at some point, your investors, Greylock, I guess, is the big investor, is going to say, okay, guys, so you've been around a few years. Now what? And
it's funny. Greylock would never say this is necessarily the revenue numbers that we want a company of your stage to hit, as much as they'd say this is the valuation that we'd like to see, and the exit we'd like to see. I mean, they're a VC, so of course they want some kind of return.
They need an exit.
If you're making $2, you're not going to get a big valuation. So,
is it smart to not make money? Therefore, nobody can really know how valuable you are.
I said that a couple of days ago. I was interviewed on stage by Kathy Brooks about failure. Yeah, she was great, and I was talking about valuation and how the second you make money, you're valued on a multiple of that revenue. But if you don't, you're valued on some kind of magical, mystical thing. And we decided early on, and this is my decision, and it may have been a bad one, I don't know, but I wanted this thing to be sustainable.
You wanted to make money.
Well, it's not so much I wanted to make crazy profits, but
you want to be profitable,
broken even. So that I could continue to feed this group of employees that were having a good time, and last long enough to hopefully one day get that crazy offer and give everybody the exit they wanted.
Okay, we got to ask you about the offers, because Kevin said at one point that there was one offer they turned down. You said were never any serious offers.
Well, I can clarify that, I guess. I probably shouldn't, but I will.
You're among friends.
I'm among friends. By the way, hi TWiT live audience. I love you guys.
You and
Really, I mean,
590 of your closest.
You really are among friends. I mean, I have to say this. This is the same. It's all the same people. It's the same people on Digg, same people on Revision 3. I mean, it's all the same community.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is that there were 2 offers that were ever made on paper while I was at Digg. And this is a very important distinction because I have no idea what's happened.
Right.
Since I left, and Kevin may have been referring to something that happened since I have no idea, but I can say that I turned one down, we turned one down, and we accepted one.
Oh, interesting. Now, one offer was Jason Calacanis' famous
Oh, now that's not that may okay.
Does that one count?
I was not counting his like, I don't know.
All right. So there were 3.
That was a crappy. I remember.
But Kevin legitimately, okay, just to set the record straight, Kevin came to me and said that first Jason was interested in investing.
Right. It wasn't real dollars he was offering.
Well, it was before Weblogs was acquired, if I recall, because he was really interested in the synergy between Digg and Weblogs. And he was interested in investing. He proposed some terms that were a little goofy.
Yeah. I remember talking to Kevin at this time. We were, yeah.
And at this point, I was basically advising Kevin. And I continued, basically, my relationship at Digg was a lot of it was basically advising Kevin. And I basically thought it was not a good investment idea.
Right.
Now, I'm sure Jason probably came to Kevin a number of times and said, hey, I'll give you this number. Just give me the whole thing.
Right.
I think once he was acquired by Weblogs, that stopped.
Right.
I mean, acquired by AOL.
Right.
And then he became our competitor with Netscape.
With Propeller.
Right.
Says crap. Okay. So you did have, now you said something very interesting. There was an offer you accepted.
Well, I mean, it's pretty well documented now that something happened.
Is this the Google offer?
Something like, yes. So let's just, I can't confirm or deny it was Google. But what I will say is, it's not like we sat there never taking an offer seriously, thumbing our nose at people who came to us. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, basically, during my tenure at Digg, we were building an independent business. We wanted this business to be independently sustainable. And occasionally I would get calls, more than occasionally, a lot, I would get calls from media companies and others who were strategically interested and said, maybe. And I'd be like, you know what? I can't waste my management team's time with maybe. If you want to make an offer to buy my business, put it on paper and we'll take it seriously. Well, that only happened twice.
Is this pretty common in this business?
Mergers and acquisitions, there's so many different sort of patterns. But I mean, I think that particularly in a boom like we were going through with Web 2.0, I think that there's a lot of speculating that goes on.
Right.
There's a lot of folks, like there's a person who sits, whose job it is at Microsoft and Google and AOL and Yahoo, who their job it is corporate M&A, and they go and they evaluate deals. And if there are nothing interesting, if there are no interesting deals out there, they'll rank the ones that are less interesting.
Right.
And they'll say, this is the deal that's the most interesting to us this week.
They've got time. This is all they're doing.
This is their job. Right?
You may not have the time to deal with them, but they've got plenty of time.
Well, and I told the story on Monday about Fox. A
week wasted.
It's not just. I said on stage on Monday that it was a week wasted and how a week was a feature, and that's absolutely the case. I mean, we're moving at lightning speed. At least we felt we were moving at lightning speed. We had to stay focused, and you take basically your entire management team, out of the running. Now, the other thing that happens, and this is something that I hope more entrepreneurs get to experience because it's a wonderful and scary and disappointing thing, but it's an interesting thing. You start to wonder, hey, am I going to be a millionaire next week? You want to know how distracting that can be?
Oh, I can only imagine, yeah.
From the end game.
Yeah.
And so, Fox, I got a call from Ross Levinson at the time, and he was, he had bought MySpace, and he was really interested, and so we talked, but there was no offer. right? There was no like piece of paper here. If you sign this, Digg will be owned by Fox. You know, there was never a Microsoft piece of paper or, you know, when I read all this stuff about offers from Yahoo and Microsoft and all this, we would laugh because I'd be like, okay, well, you know, that's interesting. You know, it would be cool if there was a bidding war, because then, you know, the outcome of that is somebody would buy our company for a lot of money, and everybody, including, I hope, the users, would be happy. But that did not happen. Right. And so it's not like there was a story written on Tuesday that said, I had no regrets about turning down offers in Digg's early life. There weren't offers for me to turn. We did turn down Current, and that got written up in, I think, Sarah Lacey's book. So I'm not the first person to say that. So I don't know. I'm probably breaking some rule somewhere, and I'm going to get in trouble for this. But
you're just quoting Sarah.
Yeah, you're not saying anything.
So allegedly, we turned down Current, and maybe that's what Kevin's referring to. If he is referring to that, he's got the numbers wrong. You know, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's all might have been at this point.
It's 6 years ago, right. 5 years ago. Well, you know,
it's too early. Even if it was 80 million, it was too early. You didn't know 6 years ago what was going to happen.
And with the offer that you say you did accept, what happens when that doesn't happen?
Well, I've been in this situation in other companies besides Digg, where sometimes things don't go well in M&A. I mean, I've been on the other side of the coin, acquiring companies. I've definitely seen things go wrong. You know, look, I think Andreessen referred to trying to understand the mindset of very large organizations like, you know, like big media companies is looking for Moby Dick.
Right.
Because it's ridiculous to think you're hunting the white whale in the entire planet's oceans. I mean, how are you going to find this thing? You know, understanding what direction the management team or the sub-management teams of these giant corporations are going to turn or twist on. There's no way to know. And
but
so
do you accept the deal and then they change it and they say, well, wait a minute, it's not what you thought?
Well, typically what happens is the process starts with a conversation, like I said, where at some point someone convinces the CEO that this is actually worth the time to have a conversation, right? And that, by the way, for me, took a lot, because it's not that I'm not trusting, it's that I understand that people like they'll use this as a way to learn everything about you and then walk away. You know, so it's not entirely crazy for someone to say, hey, I really want to buy you. Come in, we're going to do due diligence on you. You need something in writing. So what happens next is typically they'll give you a term sheet of some kind that says, hey, if we do finish a deal, this is the basic structure of a deal. It's going to be for this many $1 million. This is what we're going to not let you, the founders, have, because if you took it, then you just quit and leave.
Right.
So we want you to stay. Right. And then there's lots of other structural components. It's like, for me, you know, in any deal I've ever been involved in, I need to make sure that the employees get something off the table, and that the employees don't get, you know, if they are terminated as a result of the acquisition, that they get everything. They get the full vesting. Mm-hmm. It's often not in the stock plans of companies that happens. It gets negotiated at the time of the deal. And then the lawyers go crazy. And sometimes they go crazy for months.
Oy.
And
horrible.
We're talking about, it's like buying a house in New York. I don't know if you know how familiar you are, because you're in California. Right. It's like, but in New York,
you have to have a lawyer.
Like that much documentation.
Yeah.
And they negotiate these things for sometimes, I've heard stories of millions of dollars of legal fees.
Hey.
And then once they're done and they're fully negotiated, then, you know, basically you're days away from the cash being transferred and the company, everyone reporting to their new management. I mean, that's the tough part. And most deals, large deals, when they do fall apart, they fall apart during the negotiation between the attorneys,
Right.
because long ago you've decided this is a strategic deal and we're going to do it.
Right.
So for anything, if allegedly or theoretically or hypothetically a deal were to fall apart after that point, it would be very, very unusual.
Matt Williams said that the real value that's left in Digg is the Digg ad structure, which I think is really innovative, this idea of digging down ads or digging up ads.
I think Matt is right.
It's unique. It's something only Digg can do effectively. I'm sure advertisers like it, and I can tell you the readers love it. I love the idea of, if I see an ad I don't like, belly fat ad, dig it down, it's very satisfying. And that advertiser wants that information, right?
And the publishers also really desperately need this.
Yeah.
The publishers are having a lot of difficulty monetizing traffic, particularly if it's traffic from search engines or Digg or anything like that. So you can imagine a situation where if I could create an ad that existed on a publisher's site, like, I don't know, a newspaper site, that was basically from a crowdsource and from your social network, whatever, somehow more relevant to you and can generate a higher CPM, whether it's through an auction system like Digg had or whatever. Maybe it's just, you know, a different price level. You could probably make more money than that publisher could do trying to monetize that untargeted, mysterious traffic on their own.
Right. So I got some questions. We got some questions from Twitter.
Uh-oh.
Daniel Maloney says, any hard feelings between you and Kevin?
I just was hanging with him about a week ago.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people don't understand. This whole thing started because Kevin and I are friends.
Right.
And I was helping him with his business. So, yeah, there's no hard feelings between us. I mean, I think that I feel bad for him and what he's just gone through. I wish I could be there next to him. I mean, it's been a pretty tough time.
Yeah.
And, you know, watching him kind of move through this has been, you know, kind of grueling on my side, just because I just wish I could be there to be more supportive. Obviously, I'm there personally, but I can't be there professionally. And that's tough. But yeah, you know, Kevin and I, we just, like I said, we've talked all summer. You know, it's things are never nearly as dramatic as people want it to be.
People always want me to be in fights with people and hating people and all that stuff.
I mean, sometimes it's fun. I mean, Cal Canis used to fight with Kevin online and fake the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, you know, it was just like, this will garner more attention if we fight.
Yeah. Adam wants to know a rather Barbara Walters question. What is the #1 piece of advice you'd give to young entrepreneurs and internet CEOs?
Oh, I want to know that.
Yeah, people following in your footsteps.
Well, I think that everyone hears about Digg and Revision 3, and they hear about Equinix, or maybe if they care, and it sounds like successes, and they are successes, really. They don't hear about the other ones that didn't succeed. And so, you know, as an internet CEO, as any CEO, in my opinion, you have to be basically willing to fail multiple times more than you succeed. Maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times more than you succeed. And if you're not sort of willing to go into this game expecting that, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna put my all into this company and I want it to be successful, but if I don't fail occasionally, you know, then you're not doing enough. You know, I cannot tell you how many people said, well, I tried starting a company, didn't work out, so now I'm not going to do that anymore.
You wouldn't be an entrepreneur.
No, and so
you'd be normal.
That's the important. Yeah,
I think entrepreneurs are definitely a different creature.
Yeah, so failure is part of entrepreneur.
Right.
You know, the secret recipe, and I guess that's sort of my advice on the professional side. I think on the personal side, it's a whole other game.
Well, you have a family, you have kids. Must take a lot of time from your life.
Yeah, I mean, my regrets about entrepreneurism are all about that.
Yep.
They're all about what I sacrificed and when I sacrificed them. I moved out to New York in 2004 largely because I had sacrificed so much for my family in regards to Equinix. And Equinix, while it's a $4 billion business, and that sounds great, I didn't own, because of the dot-com crash, I got reverse split out of that. So
we know about that, don't we, Tom?
I've heard of that happening before.
You know, and so what ends up happening is, you know, you sacrifice your family, and part of the reason you're doing that is because you're expecting some great big win, so that in your fantasy you'll now be retired and spending more time with them than other dads could. But often that doesn't happen, and you know, in the case of moving to New York, that was all about spending more time with my family. The irony is that Kevin Rose, he pulled me back.
He keeps pulling me in.
It's just pulling me back in.
Those puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, and so, you know, I mean, it's
addictive, Jay, admit it.
It's like it is a crack. You know what? The truth is that the addiction and the parallels to addiction, they're real. It's not.
You're addicted to the adrenaline, to the rush, but also the satisfaction of creation.
Yeah, and the feedback loop is really intense. And the other thing is there are people who, and I think most entrepreneurs would fall into this. Actually, their stress level is actually lower when the activity level is really high and really interrupt driven. So the more they feel needed and wanted, and the more that they need, you know, these constant interrupts, actually their stress goes down, which is I know sounds strange, but there's psychology and science behind this, and I think type A's are a form of that. And so, you know, entrepreneurs fall into this trap where it's like they have to be active. And I think that it's in my DNA. I mean, my dad was a workofolic.
So are you really stressed right now then?
He seems so relaxed.
Because you're not doing it.
Well, this was a very interesting thing. So before I moved to California, I had this long talk with my wife where, you know, we had learned this about myself. You know, and one of my fears, because I had the opportunity at that point, you know, I talked to the board of directors and I was thinking of leaving the company at that point before I moved to California. And in fact, that had been my suggestion to the board, was like, maybe this is a good transition point. You know, are you sure that, do you guys think I should come back? You know, what's going on here? And my fear of stopping was that I would fall into, you know, a high anxiety state.
Yeah.
You know, which had happened to me when I left Equinix, when I moved out east.
So the less you have to do, the more crazy you are.
Stir crazy.
Well, for a while. And so that's what this summer has been about for me. And it's been a really interesting summer.
Yeah.
You know, I could have, the day I walked out of Digg, I could have been a CEO of 3 other companies. And I chose not to go that route. I chose not to overwhelm myself with starting. I have a bunch of ideas that I have other people now working on. And if I like get too close, it'd be so easy for me to jump over and run them. But I consciously said, okay, I've got to get through that spike of anxiety and have it ride down the other side. And it took 4 months. 4.
But you got through it?
I feel like I'm through it. I feel like I've broken through. I mean, I'm still an addict, very much an addict.
You're in recovery.
Right. You'll always will be.
I will be in recovery. And when I'm around entrepreneurs, I was at this investor conference a couple weeks ago, and I was around all of these brilliant entrepreneurs and investors and that world, and I could have started 3 companies, and I was so excited about being around these people. But it's, you know, I'm not stopping. I'm just learning a new way. And I think that part of the way that I know I'll be going forward is certainly advising other companies and trying to get them to be independent and funded and successful. And the only difficulty with that is, of course, I do need to have income at some point. So, I can only do that for so long, and I'll need to probably figure out a way to monetize that.
Get a job. What do you want to do? Do you want to start companies? Do you want to advise companies? Do you want to be angel?
That's what my wife asked me this morning. I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the answer is really yes.
A little
and that's
from
the
column
problem.
A, a little, yeah.
Yeah, there are only 15 companies or so, 14, 15 companies I'm currently advising.
Wow.
There are a few that are my babies. Who knows? Maybe people will never see those because, again, those failures that people never see.
Right.
And then there's also I have developed a passion around changing the way corporations are built, funded, and structured. This sounds boring, but you see these incubator models. You see the super angels and the angels and the VCs now investing smaller amounts. Lots of different tactics, but the bottom line is that if you want to build a sustainable business, it's a different set of problems to solve than if you want to build a 100x return business for a VC. So are there models that kind of take a company through these transitions and sort of are funded appropriately at these moments in time so that they're not shifting their vision inappropriately? Sometimes you don't know what they're going to be until they get prototyped and get to a certain stage. And that's sometimes where things go wrong, because you've already taken money from someone who's guiding you towards that 100x return, and maybe that's not the right outcome for that company. And so I'm thinking about funding models, incubation models, and then also compensation. And by compensation, I mean how employees get paid, because equity is not working.
Mm-hmm.
All right, in its current form, because
why not? They push to exit, or?
Well, in startups, the idea is you're going to have a lower. Oh, look, I think my family's showing up behind me.
Oh,
you have a lower.
We can run whenever you need to get out of here. I don't want to.
That's okay. Can you close the door for me? Thank you. That's my daughter Rowan. She's
Hey, Rowan.
She's 12. They say hi. So you get to this point where it's like you're actually being paid less. Your total salary is going to be lower. And the theory there is, well, I'm giving you stock in this company that one day is going to be Facebook. So you're willing to take a sacrifice in pay.
Right.
Ultimately, because you're going to get this equity return. Well, the problem is for most employees.
Can you not talk about this in front of Tom right now?
No, keep going,
sorry,
Jay.
Tom.
I need you to get to the end of that sentence.
Don't apologize to Tom. It's me you need to apologize.
So what's happening with tech startups?
I'm just teasing. Go ahead. We pay Tom well.
And Tom, you should do the same calculation, which is they look at the total numbers and they see that it's not. It's the outcome, the sale of the company would have to be so outrageously high for them to make it worth their while. So how much equity would be, for, let's say I sold a company for $1 million or $5 million or $10 million, how much equity?
1% is not going to get you anything that's worth. Right.
But 1% are what VPs and chief officers get paid.
Not what employees get. Right.
Well, and that's too low. So founders, sure. I mean, if you're a founder, entrepreneur, and you've got 50% of your company or 100% of your company on day one, yeah, the outcomes are great. But I think there are some alternative equity models, some alternative compensation models that make this problem go away.
I got to talk to you.
Yeah, well,
seriously. Well, we haven't yet. It's a sole proprietorship. We haven't set up the equity thing, but we're looking at that for next year. And I agree with you. It's hard to come up with a percentage that makes any sense.
Well, in the old days, they had it right. They had pensions and they had profit sharing, and exits weren't really.
We kind of do that, and we're not even planning for an exit. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
Right.
See, I want to work for for TWiT. I think
that's why I'm here.
We want to build something, and so we actually do a pension for you guys.
Yeah.
We do benefits and that kind of thing. We would like to give you some equity, but profit sharing seems to be a better way to go, right? Because you get cash in your pocket now.
Business.
It's more of a lifestyle business, yeah.
And by the way,
really
a lot
a startup.
of entrepreneurs in the old days meaning more than 20 years ago, a lot of these entrepreneurs who are really brilliant entrepreneurs started businesses really with the intent of living well themselves and making a good family business for themselves, small, medium businesses. And now they can't get loans.
Right.
So the only way to go is the 100x return venture funding.
Right.
And they're in the wrong place.
Not every business is a tech startup with multiples of 2 or 3 times a year, and
that's going to end up being a
can't do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jay, it's so great to talk to you. Would you want to talk about anything that you're up to now, or you want to keep that undercover till next time we talk?
Yeah, it'd be too early and probably embarrassing to talk about some of the things I'm up to now. There are some really great things around location and around.
It's exciting, isn't it?
And around, not only in tech, but also in this field that you are in, Leo, in film and broadcasting. There's a couple things I'm involved in that sort of touch that world.
Hyper local news, things like that.
Actually, more about how to get stuff built, how to get films made and news produced and that sort of thing. But too early to talk about.
Well, we'll talk next. When you want to talk, you come back. We're here.
I'm having so much fun.
It's so great to talk to you, Jay. And yeah, you're so relaxed, and I can tell things are going well for you. I'm really, really pleased to see that.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on.
Yeah,
good to see you, Tom.
Great talking to you, Jay.
Thank Rowan and the family for letting us steal you for a little bit.
Will do.
All right. Jay Adelson. At Jay Adelson on Twitter. Take care, sir.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye-bye.
Right. Talk to you later, man.
There's a ball game about to start. We got to get going here. Bye, Jay. That was fun. Very interesting.
Yeah, that was great.
He's very relaxed now. You can really see that summer's been great for him.
He's pushed through the wall.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so hard. And when you think about, can you imagine the anxiety that that must be just day in, day out running a business like Digg, and the ups and downs, and then the acquisitions and all the rumors, and it must be just crazy.
But like he said, people feed on that, and they have that anxiety when they're not doing that.
That's true.
That's what they need.
That's what he wanted.
Keep them from thinking about the other stuff. Yeah.
Good point. So he's just been weaning himself off of it.
Yeah.
I don't have that need. I really don't. But some people do need that,
I have
excitement.
I had the need to do shows. It's different.
Yeah, we
than
want to
running a
create
company.
content. That's what we love.
I decided a long time ago. In fact, at Tech TV, I had to make that decision. Am I going to go into the route of being a manager and an executive, or am I going to continue making content?
And the only reason that I started a company is so that we'd have the freedom to create the content as we wanted to.
Right.
And we've been fortunate. We've found people who help us, like Eileen and like Lisa, who help us do the stuff that we don't want to do, the hard stuff, so that we can make content. And that's what is really fun. So it's really great to talk to Jay and hear it from that perspective. We're going to do this maybe not every Wednesday, but whenever we can find somebody who's worth talking to, and it seems to be not so hard to find. I know poor Eileen saying it's hard to find them, but we've got 3 great guests so far, and we hope to have more coming in. So that'll be whenever we have something, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. Tom and I will get a chance to talk to some interesting people. It's not a show, it's just a conversation.